It was the kind of morning I lived for. The sky, barely lit by the first hints of dawn, painted everything in a cool blue hue. The air was crisp, the kind that filled your lungs with a bite and made every breath feel alive. I'd been hunting these woods in Arkansas for most of my life, knew them like the back of my hand. Every trail, every bend in the river, every quiet clearing where the deer liked to graze, I could navigate them blind. I was after a buck, a big one. I'd seen him the last few days, his antlers tall and proud, his body a perfect silhouette against the tree line. He was my prize, the one that would make the whole season worthwhile. I hiked deeper into the woods, rifle slung over my shoulder, my boots crunching on the frozen leaves. The sun was barely starting to push through the trees, casting long shadows across the ground. That's when I noticed something off. It started small. The birds, which had been chirping their usual morning songs, went silent. A heavy, unnatural silence settled over the woods. I stopped walking, listening, scanning the tree line for any movement. Nothing. Not even the rustle of a squirrel or the crack of a branch. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. Maybe it was just a predator nearby, a cougar maybe, or a bear. I'd seen a few in these parts over the years, but this felt different. The air had changed too. There was a smell now, faint but sharp, like copper, like blood. I shook it off. Just nerves, I told myself. I'd been up all night, scouting. Fatigue messes with your senses. But as I moved deeper into the woods, the feeling grew worse. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a deer, standing maybe 50 yards away, just at the edge of a clearing. Its body was long and lean, standing unnaturally still. I raised my rifle, peering through the scope, adjusting my breath, ready to take the shot. But something stopped me. The more I looked, the more wrong it seemed. Its legs were too long. The way it stood was all wrong. Too upright, too stiff. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. Maybe I was tired seeing things. But when I looked again, the creature had moved. Not like an animal, not in that smooth, natural way. It jerked, twitched, and then it turned its head toward me. My blood ran cold. It was no deer. Its eyes were sunken, too wide for its face, and they glowed faintly, reflecting the morning light like an animal's. But wrong. So wrong. And its mouth, God, its mouth stretched back into something like a grin, but the skin around it cracked and peeled as it did, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too many. My breath caught in my throat. I lowered my rifle slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements. The thing, whatever it was, cocked its head, studying me with an unnatural stillness that made my skin crawl. Then it moved. Fast. I stumbled back, my heart hammering as it bolted toward the tree line, disappearing into the shadows like smoke. For a moment, everything was silent again. I wanted to believe it was gone, that maybe I hadn't seen it at all, that it was just my tired mind playing tricks. But the woods were still too quiet, and that smell, blood and rot, was stronger now. I started backing up, careful, keeping my rifle at the ready. I needed to get out of here. I knew these woods, knew the way back to my truck, but the feeling of being watched was so strong it was like a weight pressing down on my chest. I kept glancing over my shoulder, my fingers twitching on the trigger, expecting that thing to come out of the trees at any moment. I heard something, a twig snap behind me. I spun around, rifle raised. Nothing. Just the endless trees, the thick underbrush. Then from the corner of my eye I saw it again, closer this time, moving low to the ground, its body twisted, crawling on all fours like some nightmare creature. I aimed and fired, the gunshot ringing through the trees like a thunderclap. The thing let out a screech, high-pitched and inhuman, and darted out of sight again. I didn't wait. I bolted. I ran faster than I ever had in my life, the trees blurring around me. Every few seconds I'd hear it. A rustle, a snap, that awful screeching sound somewhere in the distance, growing closer. It was toying with me, keeping pace, pushing me deeper into the woods. I stumbled, nearly falling, but I kept going. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't think, couldn't focus on anything but the primal instinct to get away. Finally, I saw it. My truck, parked on the edge of the clearing where I'd started my hike. I could have cried from relief, but as I sprinted toward it, I heard the thing again. Closer now, its breath heavy, almost wet, like it was right behind me. I dove for the truck, fumbling with my keys, my hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped them. I slammed the door shut just as I heard a loud thud against the side of the vehicle. Something clawed at the window, but I didn't dare look. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I floored it. As I tore out of the woods, I saw it, just for a split second, in the rearview mirror. Standing at the edge of the tree line, its body twisted and hunched, watching me with those hollow, glowing eyes. It let out one last screech before vanishing into the trees. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away, the sun fully risen now, warming the earth and chasing away the shadows. But that feeling of being watched, it hasn't left me. Even now, sitting at home with my rifle beside me, I can still feel it out there, waiting. And I know one thing for sure, I'm never going back to those woods again.